keeping it local. Keeping it rather local for today's leg day. I'd usually drive down like kind of a 30-ish minute way to this one gym that I really like. But it's the weekend. They close at 6. It's already 5. You know, not an awesome combination of, let's just say, scheduling for me. But that is the benefit of having a couple of different memberships. Not only are some gyms going to have different hours, well, no, not only are some going to have different sets of equipment, but they'll also have different hours. So I'll get to make use of this one. But plan for legs, same as normal. I mean, you get the deal. Hamstrings, quads. I got to do a touch of adductor at the end, not too much, but just a little bit. So that's the machine where you're squeezing your legs together, right? Not the one where you spread them apart and you're working your glutes. At least for me, I've never felt the need to do that one. If you're a guy and your butt's already big enough, I'm not sure you need to be doing it either. You know, that's just my opinion. But yeah, hamstrings, quads. As much as I like some hip hinging, I really only like cable RDLs. And there are some machines which are specifically made where, I mean, with RDLs in mind. You know, it's this little adjustable height platform, 2 cables below kind of the floor length, so you can really bend over and stretch. It's something about, like, if I do even like a barbell or even dumbbell RDLs, it just doesn't do it for me. You know, it's like my hamstrings, sure, they get worked. Like I do them on occasion. I like them, but it just doesn't beat hamstring curls for me. And as long as at the end of your hamstring portion of the leg day, your hamstrings are wrecked, I think you're all right. Hamstrings do come into play with some pressing movements too. So I think, apart from the fact that hamstrings get neglected, honestly, probably as much as any top tier neglected muscle, top 3, calves, hamstrings. Actually, yeah, those are pretty much just the top 2, calves and hamstrings. Everybody's too obsessed with their quads. But I really don't see the problem in just sitting down in the hamstring curl, spamming 6 sets in a row. You know, you don't even have to get up. You're literally, for the, you know, while you're resting, you actually just get to sit down. So that's what works for me, at least. They've got a laying hamstring curl at this machine, or a laying hamstring curl machine at this gym that I really like too. It's kind of, what's the word I'm thinking here? It's not like the one, I don't even know how to, something about it I just like. There's a couple of laying hamstring curls where it has like a flat pad for where it hits your ankles, but this one is like roll. Well, you'll see it, but I definitely like it. So hamstrings, curls, laying and seated. And then for quads, I think I'm going to do mainly just leg extensions. So here's what happened. 2 leg days ago, when I'm doing Smith machine squats, I think this is at a P-Fit, I wasn't bracing my back enough. Like, I wasn't really, because whenever I do barbell squats, you know, when I have to sneak under the bar and I'm really holding it for stability, my whole upper back is pretty much flexed. So it's acting as a cushion for the bar. But on the Smith machine, you know, it's not moving anywhere. It's just going up and down. So I let the bar kind of rest more, like it was in the same place on my back, but a lot of the weight was going straight into my left shoulder blade instead of like my surrounding muscle around it, like my mid-traps, rhomboids, everything. So I can tell putting the bar on my back is kind of messing with me. Not in like a real injured kind of way, but more like kind of a soreness type situation for me. So I think I'm going to chill on the heavy squats today. I'll either replace it with maybe light sissy squat action somewhere, or it could just be a full-on leg extension day. I mean, if you've watched some of these leg days, you know that I have no problem with a leg extension focused quad pump. And I'm not going to say it's the best method, you know, because I love squats too. And you're not going to compare, I mean, you're comparing apples to oranges, you know. It's like a bench press to a cable fly, you know. Sure, you're hitting the same targeted muscle, but the forces involved, the loading, just how much you're focusing on the peak contraction versus generally the amount of tension that's actually on your targeted muscle, they can't be compared too directly. But in a way, I mean, they kind of can. Imagine if you were to just isolate what your thigh and shin looks like in a leg extension. Right? It's bending and it's straightening. It's bending and straightening, right? That's the deal. And it is the same thing in a squat. If you were to just completely lock in on how your thigh and calf are moving, even though it's a completely different movement, in its basic fundamental idea, all you're doing is bending your knee and then straightening your knee with load. So, if the squat racks are taken, I think if you're a fucking freak in the leg extension, your quads are going to be just as nuts. But no excuse. You got to squat on a reasonably consistent basis at least. Not only for the potential, muscle growth that it's going to give you, but if you can really squat hard, you're a tough lifter. And I don't mean do a set of squats which like other people are going to say is like, oh, that was a hard one. Like, anybody who's squatted heavy to real failure, they know what I'm talking about, right? So if that's not you, slap a bumper plate under your heels and get in the squat rack. But no point wasting time chatting. Let's just get started. As predicted. Oh, whoops. There we go. Heavy seated hamstring curls. If the final, well, not final, but when the last reps get a little nasty, I'm fine with it. That just means I'm actually hitting full on fucking hamstring failure. I think it's kind of, well, I mean, just think about it this way at least. If I were to do a set where the last rep looked exactly like the first one, as far as I'm concerned, that means that the last one was just as easy as the first one. And maybe not exactly, but if you're still doing a complete perfect form rep, that's just a sign telling you have more in the tank. So from my perspective, I want to get as many reps out as physically possible, even more than physically possible, by giving myself assistance on the last couple, just to really make sure that I've wrecked my hamstrings. Because this is how many reps I could do. 0, there's no fucking intensity at all. And if I do like fucking 20, which is absolute complete physical failure, I mean, that's as many as I could do. I think that's where the money is. So let's get started. Good opener. Okay. A few more like that, and then laying curls. Oh my goodness. Oh, I lied. Let's do one more here, but no more of this heavy crap. I'm gonna make this a light squeezing one, very controlled reps. and then move on. Okay. Okay. Leg curls open. Let's go over there. Ooh. This will be another controlled set, but hammer strength, you guys were cooking with this curl. In my top three, actually, this might be my favorite laying curl. There's a few I like, but this one's up there. So I'm going to try to really kind of, this is what I'm thinking. I kind of want to launch it to the top and then hold it for a second, go down slow. That's never a bad method. All right. No. One more just like that. I'm just gonna go nuts. Make it a drop set. Okay. Oh my goodness. That's good. Hamstrings are as cooked as they're gonna get. Let's go camp out on the leg extension. Change gears. Heavy single leg extensions. Perfect starter. And then for leg extensions, especially when I do single leg, I'm always going to start with my left side because my left quad is a little undersized compared to the right one. So if I max out fucking 20, 23 reps, whatever on the left one, if the right one could get 30, I'm still going to stop at that 23 to match the reps so that my left one can get a little more individual attention and maybe catch up to the right one, but still give the right one a good amount of activation. You know, that's kind of the, that's a good rule of thumb to follow in terms of trying to work on your muscular imbalances. But if you're worried about that, like if one quad's bigger than the other, don't freak. It'll even out over time. I should make these tempo reps. Okay, a few more of a few different styles. Few more like that. All right, let's speed this process up. Make this a double leg stack set. So when it comes to leg extensions, it's a pretty cool movement because you can do them in very different ways, right? Like on one end, I've done sets where I go extremely light. I mean, 50 pounds for one leg, I guess 100 for both would be the equivalent. And then hold it for like a full second, squeeze it as hard as I fucking can at the top. And then, kind of burn out that way. Or the total opposite, you can load up a decent amount of weight and kind of just launch it around. I think there is reason, it can be, not even can be argued, it's a beneficial set to be able to do fast reps. Just something about the way that the fatigue like creeps up on me. But there is a limit. If I were doing this set and the weight was like flying up in the air at the top, so like I had zero tension on my quads once I was up here, and then the weight would clang back down like this, that's stupid. I've seen that before. I see that a lot with tricep pushdowns, sometimes with curls and rows. Like, that's silly, right? The tension should be at least constantly on your shins. The second that I do a rep where it goes like this, like where it's like if you've ever seen that, I would not recommend that to anyone. That's pure silliness. But this will be kind of a dirty one. I'm still going to squeeze it, of course, but really a little quicker with the reps. One more like that. Come on. I tried this set a few leg days ago, and as just kind of an intense volume sort of set, I like it a lot. I would kind of categorize most workouts as, hard, heavy compound sets where the point is to lift, as heavy as you can for a bodybuilding rep range, 8 to 20. So that's me curling the 70s. If I can only get 9 reps and that's failure, that's a perfect heavy set. But after a few of those heavy ones, I want to back off on the weight and focus more so on squeezing, kind of just overall pumping sort of sets. So I kind of like a heavy, hard approach followed by more kind of essentially pump work, but still hard, of course. So I'm going to start lightweight and kind of make this a reverse drop set. Really squeeze and hold it for a whole second. Come back down. Really, like when I say squeeze, I mean I'm trying to squeeze my quads so hard that my shin bends fucking backwards. Like that's when I'm trying to squeeze at the top. And then once I get to a point where I can't really get a full extension, then I'm going to drop the weight to, the stack, and try to just burn out with some partials. So that's what I'm thinking here. A little heavier. Okay. Okay. I take one more like that. Okay. Okay. That's enough. All right, let's see if we're. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Legs as pumped as they're going to get in a dieting context, which unfortunately is less than normal. I kind of explained this before, but what happens when you do pump up a muscle, it's essentially just becoming temporarily inflamed, like not really inflamed like an injury, but it's temporarily kind of siphoning fluids from the rest of your body into itself. Because the exercise, it is a stress. So with a muscle like chest and arms, even back, it's not so physically large that when it fills up with blood when it gets pumped, that it takes that much blood from the rest of my body. Whereas with legs, they're just physically so big. I don't have the amount of water and glycogen and everything else to accommodate pumping it up to 100%, which is an unfortunate feeling. But that is the price to pay for continual increased leanness. So, apart from the fact that I am just going to enjoy the workouts more because I'm going to be in here for longer, lifting heavier weights, crazier pumps. Quads especially are going to get a boost once the calories, shoot up to the thousands, the upper thousands by that. So you tell me. That's certainly a quad pump for sure. Oh yeah, that one especially. So teardrop, whitehead, medial, whatever. Even pumped, that's a decent amount of separation. So, oh yeah. So my hamstring's even starting to look kind of round around the back too. Actually, let me scoot back a touch. make it a little more pronounced. But either way, legs done. Pumped, 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 pumped. Can't wait to bulk up, man. I can't wait to bulk up. I need my fix. I'm a goddamn pump addict. But I have patience. I have patience. Do not worry. Don't feel like I don't like the fact that I'm, dieting down. Even though, especially on leg days, I am gonna kind of I'm complaining. I'm just whining like a baby. But, I just know. I know as soon as my feeding trough gets full and I start chowing down, I'm literally just going to immediately gain 10 pounds of what looks like lean muscle. Now, it's really just intramuscular water and, sugar, but given that it's intramuscular, it's just taking you from like fucking, here to yeah, just a little jump like that. So anyone dieting down right now, look, man, you got to lock in. You have got to lock in, because if you don't stick to the diet, then by the time you move on to trying to bulk up, you're not going to really be able to do it as effectively as you totally could. My whole deal right now is I want to get as much of this body fat off of me as reasonable, so that in another month, maybe a month and a few weeks, when I start bulking up, I'm in a perfectly primed starting position to start packing some mass on. Because the leaner you start a bulk, the harder and longer you can bulk for, because you have a bigger kind of, I don't want to say fluff zone, but you have a bigger buffer in a way. When I bulk up, I do gain probably, I don't know, maybe 10 pounds is even, I don't know, let's just say 10 pounds for argument's sake. I put on like 10 pounds of body fat. Body fat increases. And in the process of bulking up too, I get to a point where I just can't maintain the food intake to actually keep the weight ticking. So once I get to a point where I'm just literally not growing, and I can't manage to get any more food down, and I've already made substantial gains, then that's where I gotta say, pump the brakes. I'm now as big as I can get manageably, plateaued, can't really chow down anymore, my appetite's getting crashed, and I've got some excess body fat on me. So that means trim down. Trim down. But in either case, one point that I do kind of want to say is, in either case, right, be it you're getting ready to bulk up or you're about to diet down, whatever, whichever kind of path that you choose to, start following, the harder you stick to it for however long it's going to take, the better you're going to feel about it afterwards. Because if you actually stick to a hard diet for the next 3 months, you're going to notice. 3 months is an insane amount of time to make changes to your body in terms of body fat loss. I'm talking, you can lose, if you're really locking yourself into a calorie deficit, 50, I've heard stories of 100 pounds in 3 months. This stuff can be done. But, okay, 100 pounds is kind of crazy. I think about 50 is more kind of, that's upper end of really good dieting in terms of that kind of time frame. But either way, 50 pounds in a quarter of a year, that's insanity. That can completely transform the way that you look if you're, a little bit higher on the body fat spectrum. So, you got the, I'm not going to say, I'm kind of trying to say the analogy, like you've got your own chessboard. Your pieces are different than mine, but that doesn't mean that anything's going to change with your approach. You got to start making some good moves, right? So if you're kind of a scrawnier dude, you want to be bigger, lock into a bulk, man. Who gives a fuck if your abs start kind of being a little bit less apparent? Those are just visual anyway. So whether you want to bulk up or cut down, whichever one you may be teetering towards, I say go all in for the next 2-3 months, see what happens. Because if you don't, then you're going to end up like what I think is unfortunately most lifters world fucking wide, is just reaching a point of gains where, a combination of newbie gains, not insane dedication. I'm not saying everyone has to make the gym 100% of their life, but you don't have to make it 100% of your life to make consistent gains. I feel like a lot of people get to a point where they've reached a certain level of comfortability with their training, they've made some gains, and then they're just the same. Then that's it. Their progress is halted, and they don't, make any drastic changes in things outside of the gym itself to facilitate any more progress. And I hate to break it to you if this is a mic drop statement, but in terms of how you look and how big you can get or how lean you can be, the gym is nothing. It's all diet. If I don't eat 5,000 calories for the next whatever long period of time that I'm bulking up for, I am not going to grow a single fucking pound of muscle. And what I mean by that is if I don't eat enough food to facilitate muscle growth, then all my training is just going to be to maintain my build, which eventually will be the goal. Eventually I want to get to a point of maintenance, but not fucking yet. That's later down the line. So, the opposite is also true. If you want to get leaner, if you want to diet down, if you want to take off some body fat, which, you really don't need. If you've got 30 pounds of unnecessary body fat, I really think that the workload of having to deal with it is worth the benefit that you'll get from having it off you. I'm not trying to fat shame anybody, but you're inconvenienced, man. That'd be like if I put on a 50-pound backpack and I had to carry it around with me all the time. So I'm not ripping on you, but if you can trim some of that off, I'm just saying you'll probably feel a little better. But of course, that's not you do whatever you want. I'm not you. That's just kind of my thoughts on the matter. But either way, I'm gonna drop my calorie intake to 2,500. It's been around 2,700, 3,000, and I've had a few kind of high days. Like last night, I was totally I go right in the kitchen, had like half a pack of saltine crackers. So instead of my 3,000 calories, I had 3,600. I can say like, oh, it was a refeed, but no, that was just an extra no, that wasn't even that bad. It was only 80 extra grams of carbs. But either way, the only reason I had those extra calories was, because I was kind of irresponsible with my calorie intake for that day. But, okay, I was actually getting ready to end my statement, but no, now I got a whole nother tangent to talk about. So, every day you don't have to be 100% locked in. The nature of dieting, as you're, staying in a calorie deficit for weeks on end, a refeed is good for you. Having a day where you actually do eat more than maintenance, just to kind of, get your metabolism going again, make sure that everything's running well and you're actually burning through the food that you're eating, it is good for you, So my approach when I diet down is I never plan a refeed day. I don't necessarily plan them. I just stick to my deficit for basically as long as I can handle it, which ends up being like pretty much about 3 weeks. It's totally fine. And if I ever have a day where maybe I didn't have a ton of meals or I had too many calories too early, I might have an extra 1,000 just to kind of, really just because I'm hungry. But it does kind of serve as a little bit of a refeed. So I do see some comments where it's like, Sam, if I have a binge day on my diet, am I cooked? Am I screwed? Not exactly. Not exactly. If you have a day where you overshoot your calories, instead of having your, your 2,000 or your 2,200, you have like, let's say you went totally crazy. You were off the hook, literally, and your ass had like 4,000 calories that day. You've been making steady fat loss, 2,200, and then one day, floodgates open, you had 4,000 calories. Treats, you're just like, I'm fucking hungry, I'm eating whatever. That is a thought I've had before. I'm like, turn it into a refeed day, I'm kind of hungry. It's not going to kill you, and it's not going to halt your, body fat loss progress, but you do have to lock back in. If you had if I had a refeed day, or basically like a cheat day, and I overshot my calorie intake by like 1,000, 1,500 calories. If I did that every week, I'm not going to lose body fat. It's too much. So this is kind of how it's supposed to work. This is your maintenance level calorie, right? So over the whole period of time that you're dieting down, you need to be eating below that maintenance number on average. So think about this. You want to diet for 2 months. You want to lose, I don't know the math, whatever. Let's say you want to be in a 500 calorie deficit every day for those 2 months. So, on average, if you add up all your calorie intake over every one of those days of the 2 months, if the average is out and you're not 500 calorie deficit for every day on average, then you're not going to lose body fat, because one insane day of eating every week can literally counteract all of the efforts of your diet that you did the 6 days prior. So, you're not totally screwed if you have a cheat day, but you can't have that many. You actually do have to lock in, make sure you're in your deficit day after day after day, because, it's all math, man. If you fill up your fuel tank too far, it's never going to reach empty. And in this case, empty is the goal, because that means body fat loss. So try your best to eat foods which are very filling, but don't have so many calories. If I've got a steak, a salad, and some rice in front of me in a dieting context, the salad's going to get eaten first, which I know I don't like. I know in all my full day eatings I'm not cramming down pounds of vegetables, but no, I do kind of just add fluff foods when I'm dieting down, just so I have something in my stomach to make me feel full. So I'm going to eat the fluffiest food first, then move on to the actual foods that I like. In a way, I'm kind of saving dessert for last. So that's just a couple of little tips and tricks there. But I'll get another full day of eating and a little grocery trip soonish. It's finals week nearly, so I've got some stuff to do. But don't worry, I'll add some little specials in here every so often. Just spice it up every couple of weeks. But either way, cardio tomorrow in the morning, followed by chest in the evening. Could not be more excited. So I'll see you then.